If you're learning Mandarin, you have absolutely felt this. It's that moment you step away from your textbook, you try to listen to a real person speak, and suddenly, it's just a wall of sound. It feels impossible. Well, it's one of the biggest hurdles for any learner, and today we're going to break down exactly why it's so tough and, way more importantly, give you a clear plan to finally break through.
Does this look familiar? You feel like you're making progress, right? You can read some characters, you can even put some sentences together, but the second a native speaker talks at a normal pace, it all just goes right over your head. You are not alone, I promise. This is a classic, super frustrating stage that pretty much every single learner goes through.
But here's the really good news. As complicated and messy as this problem feels, the actual root cause and the fix for it is way, way simpler than you'd think. So stick with me, and we're going to map this whole thing out.
First things first, let's give this problem a name. We're going to call it the listening wall. It's that invisible barrier that just seems to spring up between all the Chinese you know in your head and what you can actually understand in real time.
And hey, this isn't just in your head. It's a well-known, well-documented challenge. This isn't unique to you, and it's not even unique to Mandarin. It's just a universal part of learning any new language. So, instead of getting discouraged, let's get smart about it.
So before we even get into the nitty-gritty of Mandarin, let's ask a bigger question. Why is listening in any new language so incredibly hard? It really just comes down to a few core challenges that are true whether you're learning Spanish, Japanese, or, well, Chinese.
I mean, think about it. When you're reading, you're the one in control, right? You set the pace. You can slow down, you can reread a sentence, you can look up a word. But listening? Oh, that's a whole different ballgame. The sounds are coming at you fast, in real time, and real speech is messy. It's nothing like the super clean audio from your language app. And to top it all off, you're usually trying to do this in the middle of a loud cafe or a busy street.
Okay, so we've established that listening is tough, period. But now let's start layering on the things that make Mandarin Chinese a special kind of workout for our ears. All right, the big one, tones. In English, tone just adds a bit of emotion, but in Mandarin, it completely changes the meaning of a word. You've probably seen this classic example with ma. Depending on the pitch, it can mean mother, hemp, horse, or to scold. Now, context usually saves you from calling your mom a horse, but you can see how this adds a massive layer of complexity when you're trying to process everything on the fly.
And then there's this little factoid. English has thousands of unique syllables to work with. Mandarin, it only has about 400. Even when you add the tones, you're looking at maybe 1,300 distinct sounds. What does that mean for you? It means a ton of words sound either exactly the same or incredibly similar. You have to rely so much more on the context to figure out what's being said.
And just when you think you're getting the hang of that standard textbook Mandarin, bam, accents. You go to Beijing, and suddenly everyone's adding this sound to the end of words. You listen to someone from Taiwan, and the consonants sound much softer. Or you go to southern China, and you might hear s instead of sh. It's just another layer of real-world complexity to deal with.
So you've got tones, words that sound the same, regional accents, on top of all the normal challenges of listening. It sounds pretty overwhelming, right? But here is the best news you're going to hear all day. Every single one of these issues, all of them, can be boiled down to just two fundamental problems.
And this right here is the absolute key, because if we can figure out the real root of the problem, we can come up with a plan that actually works. So what's really going on?
That's it, just two. After all that complexity, it all comes down to fixing just two gaps in the way we learn.
And here they are. Number 1, the vocabulary gap. It's simple. You just don't know enough words yet. And number 2, the sound gap. Your brain just hasn't spent enough hours marinating in the unique sounds, rhythms, and flow of Mandarin. It's not a talent problem, it's an exposure problem. And that means the solution is simple. Learn more words and listen a lot more. But there's a smart way to do it.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem. Now it's time for the prescription. We're going to build a clear two-part action plan that directly targets both the vocabulary gap and the sound gap.
To really truly understand native speakers in pretty much any situation, from just chatting to watching movies, you need a big vocabulary. The ideal target for a solid passive vocabulary is about 10,000 words. But wait, before you panic and click away, let's talk about what that number actually means, because it's not nearly as scary as it sounds.
The key word here is passive. This isn't about being able to use 10,000 words in a conversation. No way. This is about being able to recognize them when you hear them. Your active, speaking vocabulary can be much smaller, maybe around 5,000 for a super high level of fluency. See? That makes the goal feel a lot more doable.
So how in the world do you learn words that fast? Well, the quickest method is something called mnemonic visualization. Instead of just grinding flashcards, you create a memorable hook. First, you hear the sound of the word. Then, find a weird connection to a word you already know. And finally, you create a bizarre, silly mental image to lock it all in place.
Okay, here's a perfect example. The Mandarin word for friend is pengyo. The first part, peng, kind of sounds like penguin, and yo sounds like yo. So you create this crazy mental image of a penguin with a gold chain and a sideways hat, shouting yo at his penguin friend. It's ridiculous, it's silly, and that's exactly why it works. It sticks in your brain.
Now for part 2 of the plan, listening more. The key here is to be strategic. Don't just dive headfirst into a TV show where you understand nothing. That's just frustrating. Instead, start with a ratio like this. Spend about 80% of your listening time on comprehensible input. That's simple sentences where you know almost every word. Then use the other 20% to challenge yourself with native stuff like podcasts or shows. Over time, you'll slowly start to flip that ratio.
So when you combine these two things, building your vocabulary really fast and practicing your listening in a smart, strategic way, you create a clear and effective path forward. This isn't magic. It's just a consistent, intelligent process. In this process, it gets you real, measurable results. Look, you won't be fluent tomorrow, but after about 50 hours of focused work, you'll start to notice a real difference. And after 100 to 200 hours, the improvement will be huge. You'll start pulling whole sentences out of conversations without even trying. And this is the goal. This is what it's all for. That incredible moment when that chaotic river of sound you used to hear starts to separate. It becomes clear. You hear distinct words, you hear phrases, you hear ideas. The noise finally becomes a language. So by tackling the vocabulary gap and the sound gap head-on, you're not just learning a language, you're taking that listening wall apart brick by brick. So the real question becomes, once the noise finally turns into a language that you understand, what are you going to say back?